with me, welcoming to the H3 family and our $3 million set. We spared no expense, Hasan Piker.
Thank you for having me. I'm ready to bring the patriotic voice to this.
That's what
this godless channel.
Thank you.
Can you do you care that your chat is calling me racist?
Yeah.
What would you do if that party started gaining momentum?
The solution to that would always be education.
Re-education?
Re-education, certainly, yeah.
I'm just trying to tell you guys how it feels. And I'm fucking shocked that you don't care that people in your chat are saying, who the fuck is this child cold, arrogant, kind as fuck.
I no longer say. The Rockies are not Palestinian, you fucking moron! You racist piece of shit!
This morning we got a visit from Child Protective Services. This dude just called babies militants.
No, I understand. And there are baby settlers as well. But there are baby settlers as well.
Said, do you think I'm anti-Semitic? After talking to you so far today, I can say unreservedly yes.
Ethan Klein, or H3H3 Productions, is an old school YouTuber. His original content being released in 2013, being well known for classics like
I'm on a mission to rip the fattest vape. So I'm headed down to my favorite smoke shop in New York City to vape up.
While Hasan Piker, the second character in this story, is a well-rounded political commentator who started on his uncle's network, the Young Turks, refining and expanding his worldview before branching off to make more informative content of his own.
America deserved 9/11, dude. Fuck it, I'm saying it.
I'm feeling smarter already just listening to this guy. On a bit more of a detailed level, Ethan is one half of H3H3 Productions. The other half would be his wife, Klein, and they would get popular on YouTube making comedy-style videos together before eventually transitioning to podcast format in 2017, releasing traditional-style YouTube videos much more infrequently since then. In his early days, one could say Ethan was more of an edgy guy, but as time went on, he shifted his position to more left-leaning perspective, most notably from around 2021 to 2025, during which time he would often make videos around politics, an example being his debate with Stephen Crowder.
Oh, there he is. Oh no, Sam Cedar. What a fucking nightmare. I had no idea this was going to happen. I thought Ethan was a stand-up guy.
Hasan, on the other hand, has been a creator mostly known for his politics. He's the nephew of Cenk Uygur, who hosts The Young Turks, a long-running left-leaning network, and Hasan would find himself hosting and producing content there, while entering the streaming space at the same time around 2018. He would really grow in popularity in 2020 during the American elections, at which time he left The Young Turks to pursue his streaming career further, becoming one of the biggest political voices on the internet, and the only one that matters on Twitch. Both Ethan and Hasan were haters of the right in America, and on the surface seemed to have a lot in common politically. It was only a matter of time before a bridge was built between the two, and that manifested in the form of Leftovers podcast was a show hosted by both Ethan and Hasan, running roughly from the 26th of September 2021 to the 12th of October 2023. It was a show where Ethan and Hasan would cover political news, follow stories, online figures from a left-leaning perspective, and generally make fun of the right, all from the comfort of the famed $3 million bunker. The two would air their show for 61 episodes to a lot of success before it abruptly ended, seemingly alongside their collaborative relationship. So the question is, why? What led them to end such a popular and lucrative series? Ethan and Hasan would likely have their own versions of how they would describe the fallout, so I want to take a look at the actual series of events in question, and I personally think the seeds were first planted in an episode called Hasan is Leaving Leftovers. For context's sake, a bit before the release of this episode, Ethan had a debate with his audience, as well as Dan, one of the H3 podcast crew members, about socialism. During this H3 After Dark livestream, the conversation starts as Ethan tries to square his belief in capitalism with his more socialist ethics.
You know, I know that I'm a capitalist. And so I've been trying to think, like, how do you square that with my other, like, socialist ideas? If how you live is dependent on you working, right? Then you need to guarantee people jobs.
Accounting for homelessness and poverty, Ethan's just being soft if you ask me. But to Ethan's surprise, he's actually received a lot of backlash from his chat over his positive outlook on capitalism. He seems genuinely shocked by how much of his audience are radical communists, and he basically lays down what he thinks so no one has the wrong idea.
Suck it, chat. You're watching a capitalist pig. Deal with it. I don't know what the fuck. You guys are all like radical communists? There's that many radical communists?
They're not radical communists. Not everybody that's anti-capitalist is a communist.
It is kind of a radical take, being like full anti-capitalist. I mean, you're essentially advocating to change the entire structure of all societies today on Earth. That's not radical?
Now, the stream would end shortly after, but the debate wouldn't. Being carried into the next episode of Leftovers is the main topic of that week's show, where the pair would both discuss their perspectives. Ethan wanting to test his position against Hasan to further flesh it out and see if there's areas he's wrong about. This was posed through the question, what can socialism achieve that an ideal form of social democracy cannot?
I don't want to have a debate. I want to have I want to go on a fact-finding journey for myself about how socialism is addressing certain issues versus social democracy.
Okay.
And to understand from you, a socialist, what really that is and how would it be, enacted.
And Ethan goes on to press Hasan on the points he doesn't understand.
My problem is that in the socialist economy, this is being regulated by the government. People can get together now and decide to do whatever the fuck they want in their company. And that's great, But in the socialistic economy, there's rules that says you need to pay her X amount of rev share.
The back and forth steering the conversation to a hypothetical socialist society, which is facing the problem of a lowly capitalist party.
If you're in a socialist country with multiple parties, and one of the parties is a capitalist party, which would surely exist.
Yeah.
What would you do if that party started gaining momentum?
The solution to that would always be education and offering more
re-education?
Re-education, certainly, yeah. There should be an enforcement mechanism, and in that enforcement mechanism, I think like rehabilitation, which would include re-education as well.
Though despite this, most of the discussion is good, with both parties acknowledging it was useful. Now, I don't think this debate was the breaking point between the two, but I want you to keep in mind, Ethan has just heard Hasan himself say that he would support re-education camps in an ideal socialist society.
Should be an enforcement mechanism, and in that enforcement mechanism, I think like rehabilitation, which would include re-education as well.
Then, on October 7th, 2023, Israel experienced their most deadly terrorist attack in history. This was an event in which the terrorist group Hamas stormed Israel and invaded a music festival that was taking place. They killed more than 1,200 people, and it's believed by reports that have been conducted since, they also committed sexual violence to the victims. On top of this, they also took 254 people hostage on that day as well. Right after, or even as the attack was being carried out, one of Hasan's mods, Frogan, tweeted out this. Leftists preach and foam at the mouth at the thought of a revolution happening in America, but as soon as it happens in the Middle East, what they're doing is wrong. And this led to Ethan just unfollowing her on Twitter as a result of the tweet.
I just quietly unfollowed her, okay? I didn't like the tweet she was making. I thought they were, like, leaning too much towards pro-Hamas. That face when one of your favorite content creators unfollows you for being pro-Palestine. Like, first of all, the framing of that is fucked up. From her Discord got leaked. Ethan Prob was like, this damn Arab supports Hamas. That's not funny. I'll support the IDF, refollow me. I don't support the IDF either. It's not funny. The reason I unfollowed her it's because of this tweet specifically and a few others. Had leftists preach and foam at the mouth at the thought of a revolution happening in America. But as soon as it happens in the Middle East, what they're doing is wrong. People are talking about me unfollowing Frogan, so I'll explain why, since she wants to talk about murdering children and burning families alive in their safe houses is not a revolution, it's a massacre. And if you think that's what revolution is supposed to look like, I'm terrified for your idea of an American revolution. Okay? She goes, but as soon as it happens in the Middle East, what they're doing is wrong. She's implying that what Hamas is doing is right. And that's why the fuck I unfollowed you. Scumbag.
Bear in mind, Ethan's a Jewish man and he has an Israeli wife, and he's lived in Israel for years and more than likely has family there. And this led into that week's episode of Leftovers, where the topic was inevitably the conflict that had just taken place. Ethan in the video clearly sympathizes heavily with the Palestinian perspective. His position can be summarized as being sympathetic to the Palestinians, but he doesn't like people making light of the violence the victims of Hamas were forced to suffer.
So here's what I'll say about Israel. The cabinet is run by genocidal maniacs, okay? They're led by Netanyahu, who should resign in disgrace and go to prison for being a war criminal, okay? He's made a coalition of the most like radically conservative freaks that don't represent, by the way, the majority of Israelis. And they're hellbent on genocide, frankly, overtly. It's fucking barbaric. It's unacceptable. It's disgusting. I've seen videos, you know, I saw videos of Palestinian dads holding his dead like 5-year-old daughter. I mean, and there was another one that like, as a father, it's even hard to talk about. This dude was holding his infant. It was like a year old. And he was like patting her on the back and saying like his final goodbye. I mean, he's holding her like she's alive, like he's just burping her or something. I didn't expect to get emotional about that, but like, I'm a new dad and that shit really fucks me up. And I hate to see it. It's not right. I think people in Israel that support the government and the government need to watch that shit. I think Israel shutting off water, power, and food to Gaza is insane. It doesn't even make sense.
He spends a lot of the first half of the video fleshing out that position and agrees with Hasan on a lot of points. Hasan, though, seems to argue against Ethan every time he tries to empathize with the Israeli experience. His position largely can be summarized in this video as, he agrees that the Israeli experience needs to be empathized with, but the situation on the ground is so bad we shouldn't ever focus on it.
Are those people civilians there? No, they're occupiers, and those are criminals. That is, there are no civilians there in the illegal military occupation.
No.
This dude just called babies militants.
No, I understand. And there are baby settlers as well. But there are baby settlers as well. There are babies in the settlements. Well, don't you feel like you're also serving their purpose then when you endlessly talk about the
First of all, not endlessly talking.
Not endlessly, but like
videos.
showing this.
Are those people civilians there? No, they're occupiers, and those are criminals.
And like parading all of this. I think that
Well, first of all, it's a political show. We're talking about all this stuff.
I agree.
And you know, I'm just showing what I've seen that bothers me.
The main point of distinction between the two is the fact that Ethan can empathize with Israelis and thinks doing just that is important to find peace. And he is troubled by the attitude people take towards the civilians. This debate ends almost feeling unresolved after 3 hours and 50 minutes, and the fans were not happy. It was discussed in the H3 subreddit at the time that Ethan was receiving large amounts of hate and disgusting messages on Twitter, including an animation of Healer, his wife, shooting babies, and a tweet with a lot of popularity saying they would want Healer to be forced to re-enlist in the IDF and leave Ethan to be left alone. These are only a few examples of this type of harassment, but it reflects the general type of treatment that he was receiving at this point purely for empathizing with the dead Israelis. This prompted him to go as far as deleting every post on his Twitter and removing himself from the site entirely so he didn't have to interact with that type of content. Additionally, Reddit comments in Ethan's subreddit, and at a later point, Ethan himself claims that there was an increase in anti-Semitic comments in Hasan's community in Discord, prompting another discussion between the two. Ethan went onto Hasan's livestream on November 9th to confront him and generally discuss their difference in the solution to Israel-Palestine, with Ethan taking the side of the two-state solution, arguing that Israel would never dissolve its borders, and a two-state solution is the only viable option, while Hasan was defending the one-state solution.
So basically, I wanted to talk about specifically the one-state versus two-state solution. And my approach to this when talking about it is purely pragmatic, and I'm trying to be realistic. I think our goals are aligned in that we want peace, a lasting peace, a meaningful peace. I know it seems like impossibly far away, but I do think there are certain starting points that we need to come from and agree on before, expanding out from there. And one of them is this issue. I understand that you are a one state, you don't believe in a two-state solution. I'm assuming
I used to be. I used to believe in a two-state solution. I was an advocate for a two-state solution. And I think there are a lot of other people who also used to be two-state solutioners themselves.
During the debate, Ethan is clearly hurting due to the backlash he's receiving, even breaking down in tears at a certain point, and asks Hasan to moderate his chat and Discord to stop people calling him a racist.
Do you care that your chat is calling me racist? Do you make any attempt to modify? I just opened it, but don't you have moderators? Do you care at all about what your audience says about me?
There's 32,000 people in here right now. The reason why people are saying that is because of the conflations that you made, Ethan.
By the way, I'm not even defending I'm not even I'm just trying to tell you guys how it feels. And I'm fucking shocked that you don't care that people in your chat are saying, who the fuck is this child? Cold, arrogant,
Ethan,
as fuck.
I love you, but there's only so
moderate?
much I can do.
How can you be surprised when your Discord is literally full of fucking
Ethan, I love you, but there's only so much I can do if you're making that argument. You know that, right? Like,
you don't seem to care about moderating it at all.
That's not true.
Whereas if you go to, when you're on my show, we really do care about what people say about you on Discord and chat. And we moderate it to keep like a good environment, but you don't seem to fucking care about it.
He brings up the fact that Ethan would do the same thing for Hasan on his own show, but Hasan rebuttals with...
No way I can shut off my chat. I mean, I can put it in emote mode, but that's it. Just like you shut off your chat. Just like you shut off your chat when these sorts of conversations happen in an effort to stop bad faith pieces of shit. We can put it in emote mode, which is what I'm doing now. But ultimately, you have to realize, like, when there's 33,000 people, and it's not even YouTube, it's literally fucking Twitch, so that it's even faster. It's almost impossible to moderate because people are going to perceive what you're saying in a certain way. This is not like... There's only so much moderation I can do if you make that comparison.
To his credit at this point, I believe he had actually told his audience not to harass Ethan a few times and that he was a good guy, but that may ring hollow knowing Hasan is aware that chats can be moderated, as he asked XQC for the same courtesy.
Moon and NMP Lol, Asmongold, and all these other content creators actually, you know, whipping their communities when their chat is going fucking absolutely bananas and bringing my name up for no fucking reason. And I thought that you were just allowing that shit to run rampant in your chat, and I thought that was fucked up, especially as someone who thought we were fucking friends. I think that's a reasonable expectation for someone who you consider to be a friend. Ethan, I love you, but there's only so much I can do.
Ethan also brings up how Hasan's mods are responsible for the same kind of language and narrative being spread. The two go on to discuss the phrase "from the river to the sea," with Ethan trying to explain why it's scary for some Jewish and Israeli people, and Hasan seeming to misinterpret Ethan's position multiple times, which to me seems like bad faith. By the end of the conversation, nothing is resolved, and there isn't any understanding or middle ground on the issue. Hasan and Ethan's rift is only growing larger, and at this point, it's mostly because Ethan is beginning to see Hasan's real radical power level and the harassment he's receiving from that side of the community and that general political aisle. From here started a period where both parties wouldn't directly interact with each other for some time. Ethan continued the H3 podcast, and Hasan stuck to heavy political content, covering the same topics as usual: Palestine, Trump, and general left-leaning videos, but it seemed like Hasan was becoming more and more radical. Either that or the mask of the reasonable left-leaning advocate was slipping. Some examples of this include interviewing what he thought was a Houthi pirate without any pushback or contention.
Bro, are we about to have a Houthi rebel on stream? Yes, brother. What do you mean? Excuse me? Of course I'm about to have a... I'm a journalist, okay? This is journalism.
Including the captain of the ship that he went on. He's saying that the vibes are immaculate.
No way.
He's saying he wants us to visit.
Oh, dude, I would love to one day. I am afraid of America bombs, though.
He says if you go visit there, you'll feel like you're in one piece and you can visit all the boats.
I'm a journalist.
Endorsing Hezbollah, a designated terrorist organization.
Hezbollah is a paramilitary organization.
Do we like them or no?
I don't have an issue with them, let's just say.
This is journalism.
I'm playing terrorist propaganda on stream.
Oh, you want to see a Houthi musical?
I'm so confused. What is this?
The clear worst crime of them all, since he completely fucked over his friend by leaving the room.
When you said music video, I'm expecting like... Bad example, Chris Brown dancing, you know. This isn't music. I know they're singing, but I'm seeing just guns and shit. This isn't a music video, Hasan.
No, it is. They do musicals about like their fucking like their actions all the time.
Alongside Hasan, creators in his orbit began making similar content all in the same political vein and narrative.
Can somebody just like, it would just be so easy, right? We would have socialism at this point if someone just went out of their way and
if you guys got some extra bread, I would recommend you donate, but I won't throw it on you, you know what I mean?
This is a cracker take.
I don't need to enter a fucking debate about whether that's worthwhile.
This lovely pair is Frogan and Sean Deblack, both orbiters of Hasan, and the same Frogan that sparked this whole beef on October 7th. They, alongside other creators, would all pump out similar content as part of the more radical pro-Palestine crowd. Part of that vein being that they believe that Ethan is obviously a Zionist shill who desperately wants to spread Israeli propaganda.
She said, so here I am saying, actually, Osama bin Laden bad. And her response was, this motherfucker never shuts up. Oh my God.
I mean, you could shut up yourself. Just saying, but like,
the best part about this is he's actually doing the silence, Muslim woman, Jewish man is speaking.
Inevitably, the audience in this space were increasingly radicalized, and likely more radical actors were drawn in as new fans, which is a big explanation for the rise of popularity of H3 Snark. r/H3 Snark originated as a hate subreddit for ex-fans of Ethan. It's not a unique concept. Creators like Trisha Paytas have had their own. r/Trishyland, which was banned in 2022 for the type of harassment culture that was perpetuated there. But H3 Snark is still online, even flourishing during this period, as they engaged in behaviors like doxing Teddy Fresh employees and constantly propagating misinformation and harmful rumors around Ethan. This type of behavior would continue until Ethan reached a breaking point. Just over a year after this beef began, Ethan went live on October 16th of 2025 on a stream titled Addressing Hasan and His Community. His main goal with the segment seemed to be clarifying his feelings around Hasan's community and the pro-Palestine crowd at that point in time, starting by taking issue with the term Zionist and what it actually means, claiming it's used as a catch-all label to shut down and dehumanize people that are pro-Israel.
They're basically willing to undermine everything they believe in, I guess at the behest of going after Zionists, because they see Zionists as subhuman, they see them as Nazis. They've given each other permission and consent and the green light to essentially target whoever they perceive as Zionists with whatever abuse they deem necessary.
He then proceeds to show that type of dehumanizing harassment that's normalized in their culture.
Comrade Casey said, I'm assembling a team. This guy, Hassan Kader, said, I hope they commit suicide squad. Wow, okay, so 90,000 likes telling me to kill myself. For a belief that...
Bear in mind here, Ethan's only crime is empathizing with dead Israelis and supporting a slightly different solution to Hasan. He further backs his point by showcasing the type of post that is supported in this culture.
The tweet he put out, the execution that we will carry out on all Zionists. This kind of rhetoric, frankly, disgusts and scares me. People call me a Zionist. People call my wife a Zionist. It's my family.
And while people may say, it was about Zionists, so really they're supporting the end of Israel's siege in Gaza, the support for this post and its ambiguous language would still be extremely scary for Jewish and anyone with opinions that lean slightly toward Israel. He goes on to talk about the very beginning, Hasan's original response to Frogan and Ethan's beef.
Ethan is very frustrated and very emotional in this moment, but doesn't recognize that a Lebanese woman could also be very emotional in this exact same moment. That's what's so... And the reality of the matter is, anti-Semitism is an unacceptable form of bigotry, whereas Islamophobia is a very acceptable form of bigotry.
Like this claim that anti-Semitism doesn't exist because everybody knows it wrong, as I perceiving it, is absolutely false. I've never seen more open anti-Semitism in my life. Again, FBI stats. Jews are number 2. 2% of the population, 15% of all hate crimes.
And a little later in the video, we start getting into some more specified criticisms of Hasan himself, as well as the conduct of H3 Snark.
It's impossible for me to ignore that the majority of these people coming from are people coming from his community. Something his and his audience refused to reckon with. Hasan's whitewashing of that Houthi kid, says he wants to spear all Zionists to death, was frankly disgusting. I don't give a fuck that he's seen an episode of One Piece. I'd like to know why he's hanging out with boat captain of Chinese cargo vessels, aka a hostage. The reason I brought this up is because this was the guy who told me to kill myself on Twitter, and I suspected he must be a Hasan fan, but I didn't know. But then, so Comrade Casey, Hasan fan, the guy who did the initial tweet, Hasan Kader. This is chat from Hasan's Discord. They're all part of this community. And Hasan, once again, contributing to this atmosphere of disgusting rape denial.
October 7, 1,200 people were massacred. Many young people who were simply attending a music festival.
Objectively true.
Women were horribly raped.
Now, when she says women were horribly raped, you'll notice Hasan bows his head with a giggle.
What rapes did Hezbollah do? Bro, what rapes did fucking Hamas do? What are you talking about?
And I mean, there he kind of said it.
So, what was Hasan's response to Ethan's video? He doesn't watch it. Instead, he says Ethan is hallucinating and poisons the well for his viewers instead of showing what Ethan had to say.
I'm sorry, chatter. I don't care. Okay? I don't care. I don't know how to communicate this to you. I talk to literally people that are currently under brutal bombing campaigns and mass starvation campaigns conducted by the Israeli state. Okay? I cover actual fucking news. The centering this conversation around the personal feelings of a person living in Los Angeles, California is some of the most unproductive, most selfish, American exceptionalist, garbanzo nonsense I have ever had to encounter.
This is a guy he used to be friends with, by the way. And notice how he constantly is bringing up conflict in other countries, try and paint Ethan in a negative light as if he's drawing attention away from those things. But Hasan knows better than anyone that Ethan has been all for talking about those issues since the very start of this drama, and it's just dishonest to try and paint it like that. This prompted another response from Ethan where he doubled down.
So if you're against racism, you're against all racism or you're not? Now, I felt I did a pretty good job of highlighting how Hasan and other members of his community, streamers, have enabled anti-Semitism to be commonplace on Twitch, and did not watch he didn't watch a single point I made. Instead, he took to saying that I'm crazy, accusing me of hallucinating, saying I made a whole episode calling him anti-Semitic, which I never even called him anti-Semitic, if I'm being honest.
This isn't the only thing he would discuss during this episode, though. It aired during the genesis of the Twitch Adpocalylse, a huge controversy where the platform was being exposed for hosting and fostering this whole radical environment, and Ethan took it upon himself to shine a light on some of the incidents responsible.
Frogan, for some reason, has a 45-minute panel at TwitchCon. They're doing a tier list where Arab is at the top. Arab coded, asks permission, thinks it's racist. Think it's that one was, and then
thinks
this
it's
one,
a slur.
Thinks it's a slur, and then this one says eats sabra, which is an Israeli hummus brand.
Hasan is Turkish, but he's a brother.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah, I think he'd be on Arab coded.
I mean, I would put him in Arab, to be honest.
I would put him also in Arab.
Now, there's two ways to look at this tier list. If we're taking it the best faith possible, it's just a way for Arab people to express their culture and have some fun. After all, they're ranking who's the most Arab coded, and everyone there is Arab, but there is another way to look at it.
So the one thing Sabra is known for, and you can see memes about it all over the internet, is that they basically support Israel, and so they're being boycotted, right? It's an Israeli company. It supports Israel. It's a very popular brand in Israel. I don't know if you know that. It's in everyone's fridge there. Look up Sabra. It literally means a Jew born in Israel.
This is what puts it over the line into the territory of anti-Semitism in a lot of people's minds. And you could again take the good faith route and argue they weren't aware of these connotations, as hard as that is to believe. But in that circumstance, it's just incredibly distasteful, and the people involved should apologize. But again, there's even more.
Here, this was the thumbnail on her highlight. In this thumbnail, for some reason, Ben Shapiro is next to me in F tier, who's not on the tier list, and he's not even a streamer, really. So why is Ben Shapiro next to me on the F tier list?
And if you don't know, Ben Shapiro is also a Jew. So at this point, it's pretty obvious what's going on here. Not that this lot even tried to code their dog whistles in the first place. They definitely have a thing or two to learn from Nick Fuentes.
Takes 1 hour to cook a batch of cookies, and you have 15 ovens, probably in 4 different kitchens, right? Doing 24 hours a day, every day for 5 years. How long would it take you to make 6 million? I don't know. It certainly wouldn't be 5 years, right?
Here's Hasan's response to the tier list being called out.
Details, but I think it was like literally who has the Habibi pass? Hummus Gate? Yeah. Wasn't that straight up comprised of a Arab Jew, an Arab Christian, and an Arab Muslim?
It's almost like he's avoiding going into the subject because he knows it looks really bad for him and his movement. Another one of these incidents was Frogan being lovely as always.
I have no pity at all for any fucking soldiers. Distress, thank you so much. I will never have any fucking pity for any fucking soldiers. U.S. military, Boo fucking who? I hope you get PTSD.
But most notably, Ethan covered the geo-blocking of Israel, which is basically the primary reason advertisers started to pick up on this whole issue and pull back from Twitch.
Well, let's see if I'm hallucinating. The big story breaking right now is that since October 7th, Twitch has blocked the entire country of Israel from making new accounts. Secretly, silently, no statement, no explanation, has blocked an entire fucking country. How does that happen? So far, well, at first people were like, can this actually be? What's the explanation for this? Like, how is this possible? But then, like, I don't need to do any of that because Twitch put out a statement saying it's real, which is here. This explanation first makes so little sense. If you're going to be sharing graphic material, why wouldn't you block the phone number, not the email? And then also, like, what do you think? That people are just, like, making Twitch accounts to post gore? Like, they don't do this in any other war zone. Ukraine, Russia, blocked country IP. There it is. Error description, blocked country IP.
As stated by Ethan, people didn't buy Twitch's explanation, calling into question the competence of staff and leaders at the company. So from this point, Ethan had decided he wasn't going to tiptoe around this stuff anymore, and he was calling out Hasan when he saw something he didn't like. At the same time, Hasan wasn't exactly responding, but he was talking about Ethan, smearing him, and not looking at any of the actual criticisms being made.
I don't really care. I don't really know how to address it. That's it. I can't deal with someone's like hallucinations. All right. I don't know what to do.
Their relationship had completely eroded and they were more like enemies at this point. The next few months was the end of 2024 with no huge points of contention occurring. It was the same kind of back and forth, Ethan criticizing Hasan from time to time on a show and fans of Hasan sending hate Ethan's way. One thing that is worth mentioning though was that during this time, all of the streamers responsible for the tier list were banned for 30 days following pressure from the ADL. So the year is 2025. It's the 6th of January and Ethan goes live after a break for the new year. He introduces the topics of the episode before arriving at this segment.
Also, I have been teasing a work on a video I've been working on, or a special project, let's say. I have spent every waking moment on this project.
I really wonder what it is he could possibly be talking about. On the 31st of January 2025, Content Nuke Hasan dropped, which worked as a culmination of all of Ethan's problems with Hasan, Twitch, and the culture of hate and harassment that we've been talking about so far in this video. There's a few main points to the nuke though, the first being why he felt like he had to put out a video in the first place. To do this, he summarizes the perspective he had during the ending of Leftovers, and how his view of Hasan shifted after learning more about him.
We were doing our regular show, and for the first time I noticed an inordinate amount of radical, hardcore leftists. I mean, I thought we were social democrats, not whatever this was. This comment from Hasan really started to sound some alarms in my head. If putting capitalists in re-education camps isn't disturbing enough, I started to notice that Hasan was carrying a lot of water for communist states' war crimes and genocides.
What do you call Crimea? I call it a part of Russian territory, bitch. That's what I call Crimea. I call it Crimea River.
After the shock of October 7th, I noticed a huge increase of anti-Semitic comments from Hasan's stream and Discord, including from his head mod. I was disturbed that Hasan was seemingly okay with this. Hasan's chat had been calling me a Zionist, baby-killing genocider. Maybe it is unreasonable that I'm asking him to moderate his chat for a friend.
Now, a lot of people take criticism with this and say that Ethan must have known Hasan's beliefs on communism and the extent of how radical he is. And I think that's partially but not fully true. A fair criticism, I think, is that Ethan knew some of the hateful things Hasan had done, but chose to overlook them. At the same time though, I think Ethan seemed genuinely surprised at the amount of radical communists in his chat in that clip we discussed earlier in the video.
Fuck it, chat. You're watching a capitalist pig. Deal with it.
And at the point of the clip, Ethan was still aligned with Hasan.
But I've seen a lot of people expecting us to come froth and argue, and our friendship is going to end and the show is going to end or something like that. And I'm sorry to disappoint you guys, but that's definitely not what we're planning on doing here. It's not going to happen.
Meaning he didn't have anything to prove and would be unlikely to fake a reaction here. So to get back to the next point Ethan makes in the content notes, he goes on to discuss how Hasan is a cloaked extremist and shows a clip of his strategy to radicalize impressionable minds by advocating for lighter beliefs than he truly holds. This is a clip taken from Second Thoughts podcast when Hasan went on to discuss his tactics.
Then I saw clips like this where Hasan is explaining how he's hiding his power level to funnel in normies into radicalization.
You have to advocate for a much lighter form of propaganda. One thing you have to do is advocate for a lighter form while simultaneously still doing agitated propaganda that goes beyond social democratic idea.
I just wanted to put emphasis on the exact point of the so-called radicalization funnel where, for example, Hasan and JT catch them while they're young, as they say, and then they start looking into this new idea, etc., and then move forwards through the funnel, get more and more informed, get more and more radicalized. You do your part in the funnel for the cause, or whatever the fuck you want to call it. You're doing, in my modest opinion, a great thing for the cause.
Which, on a personal note, is this not crazy to admit? Like, does it not completely blow his cover and give away the game? But anyways, moving on, this intro segues into a section of the video honing in on Twitch in detail for essentially being a part of this extremist ecosystem. He starts by establishing some of the groups Hasan has shown support to on the platform.
This Houthi pirate, I mean, who are you kidding? This guy's a fucking terrorist. He literally tweeting out he wants to kill Jews and put their heads on pikes. And somehow, not somehow, because of his genius, we have rebranded the Houthi fucking pirates, the Houthi terrorist organization. Yeah, the Islamic fundamentalists. Death to America, curse upon the Jews. That's right. That's the Jolly Roger of this man here. None other than Monkey D. Luffy.
Well, they go, listen, you want to fucking bring a ship through here? We're going to take it. So that's exactly what the Houthis start doing. They start fucking sending in helicopters onto fucking ships. Bro, they fucking, look at this. They got the Palestinian flag that they painted under the helicopter with the Yemen flag. They fucking overtake. They start overtaking the ships. And they're like, guess what, dog? No more trade to Israel. If you are sending ships into Israel, if you are owned by an Israeli subsidiary, if you're owned by an Israeli corporation, we're going to take over your ship. You cannot fucking use this trade route anymore. Guess what, bitch? It's our fucking territorial boundary, and we're going to enforce this until you stop doing genocide in Gaza.
So let's review his claims. His first claim is that the boat is headed for Israel. It's not. It's going from Turkey to India. The next claim is that it's owned by an Israeli company. It's not. It's being chartered by a Japanese company, and the boat's owners are registered in the Isle of Man. I'd like to remind everybody that the crew that's kidnapped in this video has been missing for over a year now. It's Hezbollah! Where do I even begin? Thousands of civilians have been killed globally from their terrorist acts, car bombs, and suicide attacks. They even assassinated the Lebanese prime minister.
Hezbollah is a paramilitary organization.
Do we like them or no?
This is Hezbollah's leader, Hassan Nasrallah. According to Hassan Piker, this man is a brilliant freedom fighter. Hassan Nasrallah said in a speech delivered in Beirut, "What do the Jews want? They want security and money. Throughout history, the Jews have been Allah's most cowardly and avaricious creatures. If you look all over the world, you will find no one more miserly or greedy than they are." We had to make last-minute changes to this part to prevent it from being age-restricted on YouTube. I cut out the footage from Hamas, and I will attempt to narrate it for you as best I can. In this scene, an older woman is walking hand in hand with a girl who looks about 12. And as they're getting in the back of the van, one of the terrorists gives them a wave goodbye and says goodbye to them in English.
Goodbye.
And the two of them smiling wave back.
That's crazy, dog. Dude. Okay, that's crazy. That's crazy. That actually, okay, that's too much. That's too much. That's more than I expect. Bro, every time they're releasing hostages, the next wave, they're going to be like, actually, I'm good. Like, I'm staying.
These hostages are being released at gunpoint by the people who likely murdered their family in front of them before kidnapping them.
Here is a video that came out of how Hamas produces their own motherfucking sniper rifles.
He can hardly contain his admiration for them.
Produces their own motherfucking sniper rifles.
Let's see how long he can go without offering any commentary or analysis on this Hamas hype video.
What, Hasan? You're only in support of 3 violent terrorist organizations? Surely you can do better than that. So now that he's done demonstrating what type of content Hasan platforms to his audience, he moves on to bring up Dan Clancy, the CEO of Twitch, who's seemingly allowing all this to happen when it's in blatant opposition to the terms of service.
He likes Hasan. He really likes Hasan. Let me read you an excerpt from a recent interview Dan did. Not a gamer himself, Clancy mostly watches musicians or talk shows on Twitch. He particularly enjoys leftist political commentator Hasan Piker. I like the frankness and the bluntness. He's comfortable saying whatever he believes. Don't you think that might be part of the problem there, Danny boy?
Doesn't matter if fucking rapes happen on October 7th.
Some of Ethan's final points were about Hassan's Orbit and why they're just as bad, if not worse, than him.
I hope you get PTSD. And I hope you get no health insurance when you get back into fucking America.
This clip obviously made the rounds on social media and rightfully outraged a lot of people. Here's how she responded the next day.
I hope you get PTSD. And I hope you get no health insurance when you get back into fucking America. And they posted it in my head. I'm like, base? Based? Like, am I supposed to be like, I'm not walking back on it. I still fucking agree with it. Base?
The smug defiance Frogan is showing is only because she knows that Twitch will do nothing to moderate her, despite veterans being classified as a protected group in Twitch's own community guidelines.
As the video approached its end, Ethan laid out his goals for the content nuke. Those being 1, to stop Hasan infiltrating the mainstream media and to get people to recognize he should be associated with figures like Alex Jones and Nick Fuentes. And 2, to hold Twitch accountable and encourage the Twitch ad boycott to force them to make some kind of change. Overall, a well-received video, where all of the points of substance seem to be well researched. Ethan did mess up on some sections though. One example was when he labeled the guy that was harassing him in the streets a Hasan fan, when, let's be real, we could tell this guy was a sneaker fan from his IQ alone.
I'm tired of all these coward Americans in the South trying to act like they're so tough. Oh, I'm American. Oh, you don't even run your own country. You don't run your own country, bro. You don't run your own country. A foreign country named Israel runs your country.
Despite this, Ethan was reinforcing his problems with Hasan and leveling more serious accusations against him and his credibility, which is why the next day Hasan booted up his stream, watched the nuke and logically addressed each point, apologizing when necessary and promising a change in direction. Oh wait, I forgot. Why would anyone react to a Zionist video? As you can imagine, with Ethan releasing a full video, Hasan would want to defend himself, but he did it in a fairly unconventional way. On his stream the next day, he mentions the nuke around 2 hours in, saying he won't watch it and hasn't seen it, but goes on to give his thoughts anyway.
The reviews are rolling in. While obviously many of you are wondering, Hasan, are you going to be watching Ethan's content nuke? The answer is, of course not. But many people have texted me so far being like, dude, this is the dumbest fucking thing. Why did he spend months of his entire life making this video? From what I understand, the reviews are not great. Turns out when you're not particularly smart or particularly knowledgeable about politics and you try to do a, political takedown, people are going to look at it and say, yeah, you're kind of stupid. Especially if your big reveal is that I am a socialist. Hasan, are you going to be watching Ethan's content nuke? The answer is, of course not. We literally had a political podcast together and have had numerous conversations on that political podcast in front of tens of thousands of people about my political perspective clip chimping me into oblivion is not going to take away people's understanding of your lack of intelligence, especially as it pertains to politics. Hasan, are you going to be watching Ethan's content nuke? The answer is, of course not.
Now, I think it's worth challenging a few of these thoughts based on the information that we already have. One, most people like the content nuke. It has its haters, but it has over 3 million views and 200k likes. And if return YouTube dislikes extension can be believed, only 50k dislikes. Two, if he's not particularly smart, why did you host a politics show with him for years? And how has he been able to successfully debate so many people? You can say he's not a political person, but to imply he's dumb isn't really defensible. 3. Ethan's big reveal wasn't that Hasan was a socialist, it was that he was a terrorist sympathizer. He keeps this whole tactic up through the rest of his stream, and the next day on top of that, you'd think it would just be easier to respond properly. Later, he put out a video on his YouTube channel called Debate Me, Ethan Klein, where he formally challenges Ethan to a conversation, but refuses to watch the video again.
Ethan Klein, if you want to have a conversation with me, I am available. I can talk to you about any number of different political disagreements that we have, except this time, I'm not going to be nice to you. I'm not going to treat you with kitty gloves. I'm going to talk to you in the same exact way that I would to an actual political content creator who was expressing your viewpoint about Israel. I'm going to talk to you in the same exact way that I would talk to them. So if you think that I'm afraid of you, I think you and I both know that that's not the case.
Ethan actually agrees to this idea on his Instagram stories on the condition that Hasan watches the nuke, which ended with Hasan refusing again, to no surprise. Despite Hasan's apprehension, Denims actually reacted to the video, which is at least one display of good faith. Either that or she just really wanted that trending topic viewership. Alongside her was Mike from PA and Frogan, all obviously taking the side of Hasan, but there is still credit in confronting the criticism head on. Of course, considering all the juicy beef between Ethan and Hasan, the snark Reddit was eating it up, reaching around 34k members in February, according to this Reddit post. And it was as active as ever, with the full extent of the damage a page like this can cause becoming apparent on the 7th of March 2025. Set the scene. In an episode of the H3 podcast called We Can't Take This Anymore, Ethan discusses this problem exactly. Reddit users directing harassment toward him.
And they've become one of these like snark. I think the mods in this are the same ones as snark. There's like this insane crossover. And it's just turned into like a H3 snark subreddit to the point where it's like all their top posts seem to be about like anything about me and then like old stuff about me.
It's in the top 1% of Reddit, 4.4 million members.
Oh boy, that's the H3 dude, right? He's a hardcore Zionist too. I wonder why I stopped seeing much about him after their sub was hitting the front page every week for a while. Yep, unfortunately, he's a full-on Zionist. I think a lot of it has to do with Hila, since, you know, she was literally in the IDF and born there. Again, born there being some kind of, I find that odd that that's
That's in the negative column.
Yeah.
We also get new examples of Hasan's community being anti-Semitic.
This actually made me reconsider my position on how accidental Hasan's anti-Semitism is, because this is like Jews in America have white privilege. So many privileged Jews. It's scary to anger the Jews right now. Democratic only for the Jews, lol. America is the Jewish war messiah. They have a lot of Jewish students. They need that Jewish tuition money. This is all in 2024. This is a mod. The powerful, influential Zionists. The US Gov is a Zionist Gov. That's literally fucking Zog shit. This is Nazi shit.
And yeah, I think if this is the type of stuff he's okay with, it's much more likely that he's actually a full-on masked anti-Semite. But most importantly, in this episode, Ethan tells everyone about the problems he's having with diarrhea at home.
The next part is...
What's the next?
That Olive has Giardia, which is it's a bacterial infection in the intestines that makes you have diarrhea. She came to us with it.
Okay.
She had diarrhea, and
oh, poor baby.
Ducky came to us with that too. Yeah, so we have her on an antibiotic, but we had to wait until Monday, which is today. We just got it today. Sonny's crawling around. He's putting everything in his mouth. He's at that age. He has Giardia.
Oh shit.
Oh,
and now Hila has Giardia.
Shut. For real?
And now I think this morning I had diarrhea.
Oh my god.
What can I do to not get it from you?
I'm trying to
Because I'm not trying to get
Can we
that.
crank the AC maybe?
It's extremely ridiculous to get. You have to ingest my poop. It can go on surfaces and stuff. So, Olive chews everywhere. So, Sonny, it makes sense why he got it. Then when me and Hila start having to get in there and changing his diaper, obviously you put him down, you wash your hands as best you can, but these are really nasty diarrheas.
This conversation was quickly picked up by H3 Snark, of course, and communities who don't like Ethan, and turned into something else entirely. The idea that the two were abusive parents and that their kids weren't safe with them became a common theme, even leaking into Denims' stream as she was reacting to Bad Empanada, another creator adjacent to Hasan, talk about the situation.
And he just leaves the shit on the floor, something that is probably related to the fact that his former housekeeper is suing him for a number of different reasons. So I would assume he doesn't actually have a housekeeper anymore, or perhaps he lost his extra housekeeper. So now the house is just like covered in dog shit. And he has kids, and his kids like crawl into the dog shit, and God forbid, I don't know what they do with it. I don't know if they eat it, or if it's just from like contact with it with their hands or something. But they contracted a parasite that I had previously never heard of in my life called Giardia from the dog shit that is all over his house.
Dude, how is it that like maybe once a week I look into what Ethan Klein's been up to, and every time I manage to find more and more terrible shit. This is where Ethan tells a story about his family getting Giardia.
We already have mold Mondays. Now we have shit Saturdays.
Also, this is not a joking matter, by the way. It can be very severe and deadly to small children. I mean, much like many other illnesses, it's very, very, very dangerous when infants get the same sicknesses that adults get. There are lots of things that you can get as an adult. You're totally fine. You'll be A-okay. No problem. A child, a small infant that has no immune system, shouldn't be catching anything.
No wonder his house is covered in dog shit, and his neglected children raised by nannies have contracted parasites previously unknown to science from the feces. I wonder why he skipped over all of this, because everything that I said in this story, which by the way was apparently compiled by his crew,
No wonder this motherfucker is always sick.
The level of stretching these people are doing to paint Ethan in a bad light here is shameless. First, where are you getting the impression there's shit left all over the house?
And he just leaves the shit on the floor covered in dog shit. And he has kids, and his kids like crawl into the dog shit, and I don't know what they do with it. I don't know if they eat it.
Even in the original story, Ethan says the infection can get on surfaces.
It can go on surfaces and stuff.
So how exactly can you say he's neglecting his kids? And the framing is also just crazy. He said he's never heard of it to try to make it seem like this rare disease that could only be spread if the conditions were bad enough. But it's literally the most common gut bacteria in the United States, dude. And of course, Denims platforms all of this to a chat without knowing anything about the situation, as they all hype each other up into thinking they need to call CPS. And to be clear about what exactly is happening here, the chat on the right is a cropped collection of the most relevant messages in her full chat, which is visible in the top right corner of the screen. A few days later, Ethan and Hila came online, and in a shock twist that no one could have predicted, someone had called CPS on them and their children.
Well, it culminated in somebody finally... an anonymous call went into them on the 3rd, saying that they were somebody that works at the house, and they wanted to report us because our kids are crawling around eating dog shit and getting viruses.
Then I showed him the kids' rooms, and he's like, "Oh yeah, lots of toys," and I'm like, "Yep, lots of toys." Then he wanted to see Sonny. I went to show him Sonny, and he fucking woke up Sonny that was taking a nap.
He did on accident?
Not on purpose, but he wanted to take a look. And Sonny is like, they sense everything. Yeah. The babies can sense, and it's like, what the fuck is this stranger staring at me in my room? Mm-hmm. We looked at Sonny, then they wanted to talk to our nanny and ask questions. Who feeds the kids? Who takes care of them? Who takes them to school? And like...
What do you do when you get angry at your kids?
Yeah, what do you
do when a dog poops on the floor? And then the part that, in my opinion, crossed the line was like, so I'm going to visit your kids at school and ask them questions. And I says, you're not fucking doing that.
You can probably tell, but Ethan and Hila were both worked up here, and understandably so since their children were being targeted. Regardless, though, they proceeded to distance themselves from Idubs and Anissa later in this stream, who, if you don't know, they had been friends for almost a decade. The reason he gave was that at this point, Idubs and Anissa were friends with Denims and had not at one point clarified they were against the harassment her community was directing at them.
Thanks, Anissa, for standing up for your girl. I actually stood up for you so many times, because, like, why would I not? It was crazy. It's crazy. People were shitting on you and Ian because you did OnlyFans. Of course I was going to stand by you. That's insane. It's absolutely insane and disgusting. But now you choose to hang out with people that would have a problem with you if you defended me.
And I just don't see how you can be my friend and also be friends with someone like that.
Well, you can't. So I already forgot about you.
And another reason, which they weren't entirely clear with.
The last thing I said to Anissa, we were texting before I ever talked about it. And I said, she's like, I don't care about this guy. He's a nobody and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, then you'll have no problem publicly denouncing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, the conversation ended.
She never replied.
But from what I can gather, Ethan is talking about Froggy Tonic, iDubbbz's former editor, who had called healer Klein the C word, blamed Ethan for his dog's death, and had doubled down on it as well, claiming healer had radicalized Ethan, which, I mean, obviously, I've never seen a stronger supporter of the Israeli cause.
These fringe right freaks are like they've been getting more support, but like the reason they're in power, they don't usually get a lot of support in the parliament. Netanyahu was forced into some really fucked up psychotic coalitions with fringe freak, genocidal maniacs.
All Ethan wanted was for his friends to publicly disavow these things, but when he was blanked, it led him to suspect they actually agreed with the statements. People might say this whole situation would be better to handle in private to avoid sending negative attention and hate their way, and while that's true, it's not unreasonable for Ethan to be frustrated in this situation and to voice his annoyance. And from his perspective, why return a favor they refused to give in the first place? Through the stream, he mentions the parties he sees to be at fault. Denims, Bad Empanada, and Reddit themselves for allowing certain posts, encouraging the behavior to remain online.
Why do you want Ethan? Bad Empanada told me CPS is looking for a new home for them. Oh, that's an interesting lead. Okay, I mean, wouldn't be surprised at all if it came from him. But here's somebody, and by the way, I just can't get over that people are actually upvoting this. Like, people are like, yes, I'm participating in this conversation. Okay, Bad Empanada told CPS they're looking for a new home. It's really strange, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but I mean, I guess this is the...
I think they basically show that they talk about CPS before it happened to you. So like 2 days ago, 3 days ago, 8 days ago, that was a reoccurring topic on H3H3.
Oh, these people are so fucking pathetically stupid. Oh yeah, they had kids crawling around. Holy crap, that's dark. Bad Empanada's IG stories, but by laughing it off and basically just going, oh, Ethan, his whole staff is telling him it's normal. Oh,
Shut up.
Yeah, let's
makes me gag talking about it. Poor kids deserve better. So I work in a field where I'm mandated.
Poor kids deserve better.
I work in a field where I'm a mandated reporter. If I heard this story in a setting related to my job, I would have to call CPS. Yeah, I'm a nurse. If I had a pediatric patient come in and his wife, and this was with the story, I'm 100% reporting it.
And in case you're wondering how Hasan reacted.
Yeah, I agree with this, by the way. I think it's ridiculous. It doesn't seem like a valid concern from someone. It feels like someone just like made this call and did it so that CPS would go and have to look into it and investigate it.
To his credit, he didn't actually endorse calling CPS as a way to harass Ethan, and really emphasized how unacceptable this behavior was. So overall, a W in my opinion for Hasan. Earlier, Ethan ominously mentioned his rules of engagement were changing, and the first sign of this playing out was when, in collaboration with Mudahar, some ordinary gamers, he launched a defamation lawsuit against the lefty YouTuber Noah Sampson. Around a month earlier, Noah posted a video on YouTube titled "The YouTubers Who Backed Genocide," in which he goes over the horrible conditions in Gaza and tries to claim Ethan, Mudahar, Lonerbox, and others support the genocide of the Palestinian people. If you've watched through the video, so far you'd know Ethan, at the very least, has never made any claims or expressed any opinions even remotely close to that. So Ethan clapped back with a lawsuit. And if I'm being honest, I don't think there's anyone online more deserving of this kind of treatment.
People living in the West have the most power over anyone else in the world to stop the genocide. We are living in the belly of the beast. We have direct geographical, physical access to the politicians, the propagandists, the weapons companies, and the supply chains that are facilitating this genocide. Protesting is great. We should keep doing that. But also, I feel like we have to be honest with ourselves. 17 months in, and what is protesting actually accomplished? Nothing. If we want this genocide to stop, it's time to escalate. That's all I'm saying. So anyways, yes.
You can lay it out very easily sentence at a time. It's quite clear. We in the West have direct physical access to a bunch of people, including the propagandists, after just labeling a bunch of people creators, propagandists. What does protesting achieve? Well, some things, but overall, basically nothing. If we want this to stop, we need to escalate. That's all I'm saying. I'm sorry, if you had a clear vision for what needs to be done to stop the genocide, you would say it, because you want to direct your audience into something fruitful. Unless the thing you want your audience to do is against TOS, criminal, violent, etc. He's calling for people to do something that he is too cowardly to say himself. He's calling for people to do dirty work for him. That's what this is.
All of this was keeping tensions between these communities high, leaving room for further escalation, and that escalation seemed to take place live on an episode of the H3 show.
Some breaking news. Your old friend iDubbbz just released a video.
Yeah.
It's about you.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Oh my God. That is the... No, it can't be.
Well...
It actually can't be.
Boys, we are so back. Or at least that's what I would be thinking if the content cop had dropped a few years ago and it was on Andrew Tate or something. But instead, we got this video going in on Ethan. I'm not going to go into it too deeply since Ethan's drama with iDubbbz, especially the more recent developments, is worth a video of its own. But in summary, the video opens with a section that, I'm going to be honest, I would find fire if I was a Hasan fan.
Wake up, Ethan. Wake up, Ethan. Ethan, wake up.
Wakey, wakey, Ethan. Wake up, Ethan. Wake up. Time to be awake, Ethan.
Wake up, Ethan.
This is no longer a dream. This is a nightmare. Wake up.
Ethan, the dumb bitch is telling you to wake up.
Wake up.
Ethan, wake up.
Wake up, Ethan. Ethan, wake up. Wake up.
Yeah, so I'm just going to tell you now, this is the only part of the video that's redeemable. Because right after, Ian reveals the video to be more about his personal beef with Ethan than an actual content cop, just kind of using the name to capture the attention of the audience. In summary, he makes poor arguments that leave out context.
So yes, I am willing to admit that my former editor was being very nasty, uncharitable, and fucked up towards Ethan and Hila on Twitter. But Ethan and Hila are doing the same shit on their podcast. So I don't want to fucking hear it.
Terrorist supporter.
The CEO of Twitch.
Pedophile.
Dan Clancy or whatever, like the CEO of Twitch. And being...
Pedophile. Okay, well maybe not, but maybe like he...
Now, obviously, what Ethan was saying is still stupid, and he shouldn't have said it. But it's very different to what Ian was implying. And on top of that, the first clip he shows, Ethan calling Hasan a terrorist supporter, it's literally true. Like, if you've seen any of the video up to now, like, you'll know it's pretty well proven at this point. As we get further into the video, Ian proceeds to misrepresent Ethan's problems with him and misinterprets his interpretation of the racial tier list.
You caught us. We're not gonna run to your defense when, I don't know, we follow people. We be following. That's one fucked up thing that you can say about Anissa and I is when we're on Twitter, we do be following.
The last thing I said to Anissa, we were texting before I ever talked about it. And I said, she's like, I don't care about this guy. He's a nobody and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, then you'll have no problem publicly denouncing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, the conversation ended.
She never replied.
Now, when I first saw this tier list, I immediately knew what it was doing. I was like, oh, it's a play on the who has the N-word pass and who doesn't tier list. Granted, Habibi is very different than the N-word, but it is a cultural word amongst Arabic-speaking people and Muslim people. Like, that is a word that's used. Habibi, it means my love.
Making a tier list based on race. And nobody has a fucking problem with that. Okay, you have a tier list based on race. Where's the Jewish panel? Where's the Jewish panel? Where at the top it says Jewish. It's a tier list based on Arab to Jew. He's Arab, which is good. That's the best thing you can be on this. That's the best. This is racist.
I will say that conveying information through a tier list is not the most effective thing, but Ethan should understand this principle. He did a white slurs tier list with Hasan.
Cracker.
I mean, you know what my take is on that.
So yeah, the white guy can say all the things that he wants, like cracker, but the Arabs can't have their tier list.
Sabra is literally means
Look up Sabra. It literally means a Jew born in Israel.
After that, he has this weird segment where he brings on all the people that hate Ethan the most and get them to say something nice about him, which could have been coming from a good place if I'm being as charitable as I can, but it just comes across as extremely forced and odd.
I think Ethan Klein rocks a buzz cut pretty good, and I think he's got a good choice of facial hair. I think it's really cool what he did 8 years ago, fighting that frivolous lawsuit. That was pretty fucked up, and fighting it, you know, he changed YouTube for the better. And I thought that was cool because I thought it was like he was fighting for free speech.
Ethan simply responded with a short video on the H3H3 Productions channel where he argues this.
There's really just one central point that I want to make here. My good friend Ian, in his hour-long takedown, did not mention one time Child Protective Services. Not one time. In the entire video, he never says CPS. No mention, no explanation, no overview, nothing. Zero mentions of CPS. A few weeks ago, Child Protective Services showed up to our house at 6 a.m. to interrogate us about an anonymous tip they got that our kids were crawling around and eating dog shit at catching diseases. Ian spends the majority of his video characterizing me like a raving lunatic who's lashing out at everyone around me with zero provocation. What he doesn't say is the majority of these clips he's using are taken from this episode. Now, does he ever show the title of this episode? No, he does not ever show the title of this episode.
And at the end of the video, reveals something that he'd been keeping under wraps for a while.
Something that I've never talked about publicly, but around the same time, we received 2 human skulls in the mail at our home, which led us to having a very pleasant interview with the FBI.
With Hasan's reaction not being quite as gracious as with the CPS situation.
You see the skull thing from him, genuinely insane? No.
Some people like to make the argument that Ethan ordered the skulls himself to make the other side look worse, or so the crew would feel bad for him. But that type of argument is the same type of conspiracy thinking that you see in the Channel 5 video. In the next H3 stream, Dan goes over the conversation they had with Scores.com.
They shipped this shit without receiving a single penny from anybody, which if you think that sounds fucking crazy, I agree. And I forcefully let the company know that I thought that was pretty crazy. So I had a back and forth with, you know, I want somebody who's higher up at the company. They were obviously extremely apologetic and have said that they've made corrections to how they do business.
I doubt they would be this apologetic like this if they knew Ethan was the one that had ordered the skulls. On top of this, the site will probably be taking legal action considering the damage this public call out would be doing to their business. So to circle back around, the content cop wasn't received well and seemed to backfire massively, especially after the skull reveals. There seemed to be a lot more mainstream attention on the drama, with for what felt like the first time, much of that support being towards Ethan. You had XQC and Asmongold chipping in, and the Twitter account Yeet had at this point been posting in support of Ethan. Overall, the public sentiment felt like it was actually shifting a bit. This boost in support might be what encouraged Ethan to change his conditions for a debate with Hasan on the 23rd of April. A little into his stream, Ethan had said he'd be willing to face Hasan again, even if he hadn't watched the nuke. Shortly after, Hasan's chat told him the news, and he quickly accepted. So by the end of their streams, it had been decided. The two were finally going to settle their differences. So this was the biggest day of the year for the unemployed, and essentially the culmination of all the beef up until this point. On the 2nd of May 2025, Ethan and Hasan booted up their live streams and hopped into a call together. Now, I'm not going to be going through every single argument in the video since it's over 4 hours and this video is not planning on being that long, but I can briefly summarize some of the more important disputes they had in different sections of the video. To start off, Hasan wants to discuss terminology and how to define the word Zionist.
I think we should define what Zionism is and what you mean by Zionism and what I mean by Zionism.
Zionism is the belief that Jews should have their own homeland in the historic, Palestine area. That's it.
Okay. All right. So I believe that Zionism is a religious ethno-supremacist ideology that revolves around the exterminationist policies of removing the indigenous population that lived in, as you said, historic Palestine, as long as they are not Jews, because it's a religious, ethno-religious supremacist ideology. I think that this is a disagreement that you and I have.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. If you want to add that, like the genesis of Zionism included, you know, the displacement and you know, the ravaging of the culture that existed there, then I would agree with you.
But right from this point, I get the impression that the two have come to talk about different things. Ethan wanting to take this as a chance to confront Hasan for his behavior, and Hasan wanting to focus the conversation on Gaza. Further on into the conversation, Ethan moves the topic towards the direction he wants, asking Hasan about his opinion on Frogan's Sabra tier list.
I think that the Sabra hummus tier list is absolutely insane to consider anti-Semitic, and most people have already laughed about it, despite the fact that it was very damaging in terms of deplatforming a bunch of content creators that participated in this, egged on by yourself, by the way.
Yes. With pleasure.
And yeah, it's not.
It's insane.
Even remotely.
Okay.
It's not even remotely anti-Semitic.
Very
it's
good.
Like
Let me ask you a
the
question.
Cracker Band that Twitch capitulated on.
So let me follow up with this. Have you seen the thumbnail?
The thumbnail?
Yes, that's what I said. This
For
is the
what?
thumbnail that's still up. Now, let me ask you this, Hasan. Here's Frogan's thumbnail for the Sabra hummus tier list. In the F tier is me and Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro is not in the tier list. He has never explored or used. Why do you think Ben Shapiro is on the F tier?
Ethan?
Whoa, answer the
walk you through this
question.
again.
What, you're dodging?
I'm not iDubbbz. And
Oh,
I'm
but
not
you can't
Frogan.
make value judgments suddenly on your friends.
In my opinion, what Hasan is doing here is clearly dismissive. Even if you don't agree that it's expressly anti-Semitic, or that the intentions behind it were anti-Semitic, being the left-leaning figurehead of the internet, surely you could understand how it could be interpreted that way. At another point in the conversation, it moves into a point from the content nuke, Hasan denying the rapes on October 7th. Ethan plays him a clip from the video and he can't deny this, so the conversation shifts, then becoming whether or not the rapes actually occurred and if the rape denial is justified.
Overall, based on the totality of information gathered from multiple and independent sources at different locations, there are reasonable grounds to believe that conflict-related sexual violence occurred at several locations across the Gaza periphery, including in the form of rape, gang rape, during the October 7th, 2023 attack. Credible, circumstantial information which may be indicative of some forms of sexual violence, including genital mutilation, sexualized torture, cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment was also gathered.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So I'm gonna walk you
Are
through
they
this real quick.
hallucinating?
No. So no, you just don't know what words mean.
So when he knows that he's wrong, instead of conceding to it, he just brings up another unrelated rape for some reason.
You seemingly act like you care about sexual violence
This is
taking
her.
place against Israelis. Meanwhile, one of the hostages that actually was returned in the early stages did get raped by an Israeli fitness instructor.
You know,
I have not seen you talk about that. I have not seen you talk
Why
about
would
the
I talk
Israeli
about
pro-rape
a crime
riots
that an
took
Israeli
place.
did unrelated to the
had
conflict?
Israel
Do you
had
find it
a
interesting?
January
There's something
6th
that I
style. Israel had a January 6th style pro-rape riot.
Another standout point of this debate was Hasan and Ethan's discussion around his support of the Houthis. At the very start of this conversation, Hasan basically says that he fully supports the Houthis kidnapping cargo ship members as a deterrence for Israel.
I believe what the Houthis are doing in terms of stopping Israel doing a genocide to implement a blockade on the Red Sea is a good thing. 10 toes fucking down. They are on the morally right side. Don't you also think they're on the morally right
What have
side?
they
Ethan?
done?
You're supposed to.
Hold on.
You're saying that it's a genocide.
What have they done?
What the fuck are they supposed to do?
They hijacked a boat that had nothing to do with Israel? Like fucking
That's
bravo.
not true. That's not true.
Really? What was that? What did it have to do with Israel?
It was literally owned by an Israeli.
It was
for the
partially
fucking
owned.
island.
Is a big multi-conglomerate company that was partially owned by an Israeli.
Yes.
It was
And
bound for fucking for Turkey
It
from
doesn't matter.
India.
What do you mean?
There
What-
was
what do
they
you think
kidnapped
BDS is,
5
dude? What do you think
totally
BDS stands for?
unrelated Filipino fucking
also
prisoners
said
and
it wasn't owned by
kept
an
them
Israeli,
prisoners
by
for
the
a
way, in
year.
your-
And regardless of the validity of this argument, he is essentially admitting to supporting terrorist action, which is exactly what Ethan is accusing him of. This conversation branches off into a debate on this point, and in this same segment, Hasan tries to get Ethan to call his own wife a terrorist.
Okay, so you think the IDF is a terror organization?
I said yes.
You
I
believe
think
the IDF
I think it would be.
okay.
I think it's fair to characterize them that way.
Okay. Your wife was in the IDF.
Yeah.
Do you believe your wife is a terrorist?
Of course not.
Which is just incredibly weird to me, and sums up Ethan's whole issue with this group. Regardless of your opinion of the IDF, you obviously can have sympathy for someone who was forced to conscript because of the laws of the country, and it's just dehumanizing to try and get Ethan to call his wife a terrorist here. And for what? Because he doesn't like what the Houthis are doing? And of course, naturally, the conversation is always going to come back round to our boy, the Houthi Luffy. Hasan claims he isn't a Houthi. He tries to say he's just a Yemeni teenager, and that Ethan is calling him a terrorist just because he has a gun, framing Ethan as bad for this. This is completely dishonest though, because Hasan initially framed the interview as an interview with a Houthi pirate.
Bro, are we about to have a Houthi rebel on stream? Yes, brother. What do you mean?
Even if the kid isn't one, at least he's close enough to fool Hasan, so it isn't exactly unfair for Ethan to see it like that, when Hasan was the one saying it in the first place. And eventually, he concedes this point, but I feel like he had to know all this information from the start anyway.
Why did he say yes? Are you a soldier?
Bro, he doesn't even fucking speak English. You're like, oh, he's a soldier. Wait, even if he is, I'm gonna ask you a question very clearly and very deliberately. If Anne Frank,
just like Anne
posted,
Frank, by the way.
if Anne Frank lived, if we had the internet during the time of the Holocaust, and Anne Frank posted about this is what we're gonna do to the Nazis, would your analysis of Anne Frank change even a little bit?
To make it even better for himself, he goes on to double down on the Anne Frank comparison and say Anne Frank is the same as this kid.
And you still agree that he's just like Anne Frank?
Did you not hear what I asked you?
I'm just summarizing.
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Anne Frank died before she could resist. But if she did, I would never hold that against her.
He was fucking killed in a concentration camp, you psychopath.
Near the end of this section, in an attempt to save himself, Hasan makes Ethan watch a clip where the kid is saying he has no problem with the Jews.
طبعا جاتني أسئلة كثيرة ماذا إذا اليهود قرروا أن يعودوا إلى اليمن يعني بنسمح لهم ولا لا ولا طبعا طبيعي يعني إحنا اليمنيين نمد أيدينا للسلام يعني اليمن مسموحة لأي شخص يعيش فيها.
This is like shot like by a fucking like propagandist. What are you talking about? Like he's all fucking dolled up. He's got makeup on. The lighting is perfect. Yeah, he's like, guys, please, we love the Jews. Give me a break. Our problem is not with the Jews,
Feeling like a
guys.
big man, buddy? Dunking on a fucking 19-year-old living in Yemen? You pick and choose what you think? You pick and choose what you think is appropriate
Well, what
to
do you think
show?
about all the shit I showed you? Which do you think he believes, this or that?
I think he believes both.
Oh.
And either way, I would say that is still more than enough to say this kid has displayed anti-Semitic behavior. In any other scenario, we'd understand this. If someone was out here on one hand saying we need to kick all black people out of the country, they're committing all the crime and ruining society. But on the other hand saying, no, you have me all wrong. I have no issue with black people. I think we can all understand that they're probably racist. Another point of contention is over a claim made by Ethan in the content nuke. He says millions of Jews were displaced because of Arab countries kicking them out, with threats of violence contributing to them going to Israel. While Hasan seems to be under the impression this is a horrible piece of misinformation, when Ethan asks him to explain how, his main point is to present this clip.
Israel had a hand in uprooting them. After the 1948 war, there was mounting popular hostility towards the Jews in Iraq. 5 bombs exploded in Jewish sites. The series of bombs created a panic which led more and more Jews to register to leave the country. I met an elderly friend of my mother's, an Iraqi Jew called Yaakov Karkukli, who had been in the Zionist underground. One member of his group, Yosef Basri, a very, very intelligent Jewish lawyer, and his assistant Shalom Saleh Shalom were responsible for 3 out of the 5 bombs. Basri's controller was an Israeli intelligence officer named Max.
Why is it that the Israeli government benefited from creating instability and making it seem as though these countries were uninhabitable?
In isolation, this seems to be quite bad for Ethan, but right after he pulls up another video from the same historian.
One hand grenade was lobbed by a young activist in the Istiklal party, which wanted to expel the Jews from Iraq and confiscate the properties. And another hand grenade was lobbed into the Masuda Shem Tov synagogue, and there 4 people were killed. And he was a criminal who had a grudge against the Jews, and it had nothing to do with the Mossad.
Did you hear that? The first two had nothing to do with the Mossad. But let's continue to listen to the respected scholar, Avi Schleim, you fucking liar.
Hold on.
Nope, you listen to this fucking historian. Yes, you said they left by choice. They left because of Zionism. They left because they were being threatened. Let's hear what your respected historian has to say, you liar.
That's right.
Wait,
even
listen.
if all this is true, the main reason for the Exodus was not the bombs, it was persecution by the government. And I concede that. It's not part of my argument that the bombs were the main reason for the liquidation of this community. But my answer to my Zionist critics is, even if I knew for certain that not a single Iraqi Jew left Iraq to go to Israel because of the bombs, I would still think this is a real indictment of the state of Israel, because Israel was created to provide a safe haven for Jews, not to be harassing and threatening Jews in other countries.
This completely disproves Hasan's point and makes him look quite dishonest. Now, this is one of the more famous points from the debate. Hasan crashes out live and completely misrepresents Ethan's point.
Because we're no longer safe.
Iraqis are not Palestinian, you fucking moron! You racist piece of shit!
What?
Because Iraq and the pan-Arabic nationalist movements that arise out of
You are
Zionist
out of your
violence
mind.
is not about Palestinians.
Okay, so
You
what did the
cannot make
Jews
this
in Iraq
comparison.
have to do with
Zionists
fucking
were
Israel,
the ones
you
who
bigot?
actually fucking
You are
terrorized the
so out of your
Palestinians.
mind.
And then Iraqis,
Dude, you screaming and
cannot point
grandstanding
to
doesn't mean you're
Iraqis or
right.
Iraqi
This is
government's
pathetic.
racism
Okay.
during the pan-Arabic nationalist movements as a vindication for why, or a comparison as to why Israel had to do the Nakba.
Do you think
You
that...
fucking racist piece of shit!
Here, he's literally trying to make it look like Ethan is justifying the Nakba, when all he's doing is saying that Jews were also displaced. Even if you trace the point, they're arguing back to Ethan's original video to try to be as good faith as Hasan as possible. Ethan only brings it up originally to explain why Israelis might feel justified in being cautious of lowering their barriers.
It makes a lot of sense that there be some distrust there. Is it really insane to think that Jews, as an ethnic minority in Israel, would not be safe? After all, Israel is a country of refugees. If the Jews didn't come from Europe after the Holocaust, they came from the surrounding Arab countries that expelled them in massive amounts following the 1948 war. In fact, there was more Jews displaced than Palestinians during the Nakba. 1 million Jews.
So in conclusion, most people saw this debate as a complete joke, considering Hasan props himself up as this god of politics. I would say the only people that couldn't see that are people who went in with a bias. There were moments when Ethan was forced to walk back on certain things though, and that's likely a result of his tendency to be over emotional and take any possible route of attack on people, which by the way, I think that is actually a good criticism of Ethan, and if he wants to be the most effective in combating Hasan, he should really not do that. But overall, he held up well in this debate. So, where are the two of them now? Well, after the debate, Hasan finally watched the content nuke, or at least part of it, and he's continued with the same kind of rhetoric as always. Hasan also claims to have been detained in the airport, but there's speculation around if that's actually true or if he's lying about the time that he spent there. And meanwhile, Ethan was being sued by Denims. She started a GoFundMe but failed to reach her goal and dropped the lawsuit. Apart from that though, I've also heard he's putting together a video on Bad Empanada, but I'm not entirely sure, and recently has had Ian and Anissa's boxing trainer on to expose them, which is definitely a situation that's worth a whole video of its own. In conclusion, this drama isn't really on a path towards ending, since Hasan's side feel endlessly justified in harassment of Ethan because they're fueled on the ego of morally grandstanding the conflict. And Ethan won't drop something when he's being attacked. He'll run this into the ground if he has to. My takeaway is, don't trust these insane activists. They don't want to see any real resolution in Palestine, and it seems like all they care about is a free pass to harass people.